see us well and you can hear us well. So just tell us if the sound is okay, not too loud. Can you say something?
I can say something.
You can say something. We can say something. So we are today at the Bearhill Husky Kennel, a little bit north from Rovaniemi, with my friend Valentijn Beets, my longtime friend. I think it's been 7 years that I've known your family when I first came to your original place here.
That was a really long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
We've known each other quite a while.
We know each other quite a while. And Valentijn with his wife Veronica, they are Husky Kennel owners and some of the most forward-thinking people here in the Husky industry. And this is podcast number 12 that we are doing, and this is the third podcast that we're doing live for you. I'm so excited to do this in real time so you can see how life is here in Lapland. And we are in the middle of polar night these days. It's so dark outside.
Already. At the moment it's not very, but it is getting darker.
It's getting, yes.
So today is a particularly dark and gloomy day, and that's one of the reasons why we're inside, but Alex will explain.
Yes, my original plan was to do the podcast outside of here so you can see all the dogs as well. Well, I think you might hear them barking outside. But the weather is so dreadful. It's snowing like these big chunks, these big snowfalls, so I'm not going to put all the cameras outside under the snow. And frankly, it's getting dark already by 2 p.m. You cannot see already anything. So that's why we are cozy here inside, where your clients can come enjoy some hot juice, some sausages that we have here, and relax. So before we go into our talk with Valentijn, let's see a little video about the Bearhill Husky so you can see what kind of fun things are happening here. All right, now you've seen the beautiful, amazing winter video from the Bearhill Husky Kennel, and it's 6th of December, so it's a special day.
Yep, today's Independence Day in Finland, so normally everyone would be watching the big ball in Helsinki, where the president invites everyone over, but not this year because apparently with Corona they've cancelled that as well, or at least changed it.
I don't watch it anyway.
All right, well, anyway, it's not my favorite thing to do either. Usually I'm at the kennel doing something.
You do lots of live videos as well on your channel with the Huskies and going around.
Yeah, we do. We've due to the Corona, of course, we've kind of not been able to do the tours as normal, so we decided to see if we could do something live, just to keep people informed about what's happening. And unfortunately, we're not very regular with it. We should be more regular. Hopefully, we will be regular with it again in the future. But they've been great fun to do.
How do people can find your live videos?
We usually do them on Facebook. So unfortunately for for us, that's the only channel that we have that we can actually use our GoPro on the chest to do that. Doing live videos with a phone while driving in the cold, holding out your hand like this with a phone, it's not much fun. So I tend to try and do it with my GoPro, and then doing it through Facebook is the most obvious and easiest channel for us.
And how to find you on Facebook?
Just search us for Bearhill Husky, you'll find us there.
Perfect. So, Valentijn, thanks for having us here. I've always enjoyed my time here when we see you work. When I always come here, you're always working, you're always doing something, either with tourists or you're taking care of the dogs, feeding them, cleaning, training them. I cannot imagine how much work does go into that. Please tell us about what you do here.
Well, most of the time you show up. It's actually coincidence because when you show up, I'm working. But most of the time, I'm actually telling other people what to do. So it's a lot of work doing working at the kennel, and we are really fortunate to have a great crew of people working with us. So. It's too much work in the meantime to be able to give all these dogs the care, attention, the movement that they need to do it alone for us. So as I said, it's a team effort, and I'm just really happy that we have a very good team together to do it.
So how did you get into the whole Husky business in the first place?
It happened many years ago, and kind of went as follows. I had been studying a wilderness guide course in Kuru. And during this course, I'm going to tell the long version now.
Sure, no rush.
During the course, we were studying geology, diamonds and gold and whatnot. And there was a teacher, Martti Kolka, I believe his name was, and he was explaining about different, stones and whatnot. Now, I grew up in Africa in a diamond mining village. And we were talking about gold mining, and I was like, I somehow casually mentioned I wouldn't mind doing some gold mining because you can go mining in Lapland. And apparently this teacher picked up on this, and he came back the next week and says it's all been organized. I was like, what do you mean? No, there's this guy, he's got a gold mine, he was last year's course, you're going gold mining. I was like, well, okay, that, fine. But maybe I should go meet this guy before I decide to spend a whole summer with him in some remote cabin in the middle of Lemmenjoki. So it turned out that Timo Keinonen was his name. He was studying to be a sled dog guide. And it was at the time Taivalkoski Metsäoppilaitokset. And I went over to meet him there, and I saw, having finished this course, I decided that, hey, this sounds pretty cool. These people are doing sled dogging and this, and I was thinking that maybe as a foreigner it's something good to specialize. I've got the general guiding course, I should specialize. So I decided to apply for this course, got in, spent my summer gold mining as well, which was awesome, but got into the course and spent a whole year working with dogs. And it was in Taivalkoski, we were with Finland Kennel, Timo Jokkala working there. And eventually I got a practical period working up in the north in Kamisak. And Kamisak is one of the oldest kennels in Finland. It's changed owners now in the meantime. But I was with the original owners, Eija Järvinen and Reijo Järvinen. And I worked there a couple of winters as a guide. Then I spent a couple of summers working in some other kennels. And eventually I figured out I can do this better. I'm very bad at working for people. And because pretty soon I think I know how to do your job better than you, even if I don't, but I'll still think it. And I decided that I could get more money and more pleasure doing it that way. And I convinced Veronica, my wife, that, hey, this is an awesome idea. She was studying in Savonlinna at the time. And having this brilliant idea that we're going to do this together, we figured out that Well, one of the things I'd figured out while working in Lapland is my boss back then, he had been there for years and years and years. And he had a lot of trouble with the reindeer herders. They still didn't accept the dogs in the area. So I saw all this trouble that he had, and I thought, no, he's being smart. He has this trouble. I'm going to be smarter than him. So we decided to start our kennel in Lieksa. Because in Lieksa there's no reindeer and there's lots of snow. Back then there was, now with global warming there's some less.
And where is Lieksa?
Lieksa
How
is
far
North
away?
Karelia. It's about 550 kilometers south,
So it's like
east from here, yes.
Wow, that's a long way from
It
here.
is. And we thought there was a brilliant move. We got ourselves a little farm in the middle of nowhere. And then we discovered that in Lieksa there is a lot of snow. It's really easy to get permissions to drive and go everywhere with your dogs. We had a fantastic trail. There was just no tourists. And the one thing we learned in business there is that check where the tourists are, because apparently winter tourism in Finland is not the same as winter tourism in Lapland. And we thought being smart that we were
The first ones.
Yeah. So we showed up there and there was no tourists. So we actually had to go out and find them. We had to to survive, we had to hustle, we had to go find the tourists, we had to make a tour, we had to use everything what we had to our maximum advantage to make the business work. Back then it was just me, Veronica, 30 dogs, and we lived on a little farm in the middle of nowhere. It was called Kontiovara, the village, so that's where the name of our business eventually came from. Our kennel, Bearhill, Husky, Kontiovara, translated. We started there and we were doing 5-day expedition trips. We went from cabin to cabin and the guests actually stayed with us in our home. We picked them up from Joensuu Airport, drove them to our home. They stayed in the guest house. So it was a very intimate type of tour. They helped out with the dogs, feeding them, cleaning them, running them, taking them out. And it was really good fun to do. And it was very educational as well. It was hard work. I think both of us, me and Veronica, basically think back on that day as it was a lot of hard work, but it was really cool. However, at some point in time, our daughter was born in 2007. And then all of a sudden, living in the middle of nowhere, being out 5 days a week, didn't seem so much fun anymore. My wife would be home with the kids and the dogs that left over, and that would take a lot of time, and then it didn't work very well. It wasn't a good setup. At the same time, what also started to happen is that we got more work in the north of Lapland. We were being invited up north to come and work as a subcontractor for some of the big kennels to handle the Christmas rush. Eventually we were invited to stay for a longer period, so not only over December, and then we decided that, okay, we're going to slowly stop doing the tours in Lieksa and we're going to focus more on coming to north and then specifically Rovaniemi. So there was years that the whole family would basically live in a rented apartment with the dogs close by, and we'd work here for 3-4 weeks, 5 weeks, and then we would go south. Back in the day when there was still a very well-defined season for the Russian tourists to come to Finland, we would drive to Vuokatti or somewhere there, Sotkamo area, and we would work with the Russian tourists for 2 weeks. Then we would go home, do our long tours in Lieksa, and then in summertime we would be basically, I think we even cleaned fish. We did whatever we needed to do to survive through summer. I was a rafting guide. Veronica worked in the kitchen and in places like this. So that's how it started. Slowly we came north more. Eventually we settled here permanently. And at the same time, what also happened is while we were coming up north, we got introduced to a company that had this brilliant idea to start doing an indoor winter wonderland husky ride in Helsinki for the cruise ships in summer. And they had asked a few people, and apparently they liked me the most or my replies, because I didn't talk about the money the first time we met them, because the money was irrelevant, because my little calculation was going, first of all, I have a lot of colleagues of mine who earn quite a lot of money working when they're associated with ice hotels and snow hotels. Kiruna is one, but there is also Kirkenes Snow Hotel, etc. So to be associated with a snow hotel is not a bad business idea if you're working with sled dogs. And at the same time, cruise ships is also something that my colleagues in Alaska, they earn a lot of their yearly income through summertime with cruise ships. So I was sitting there going, well, in this case, I can drive my dogs in summertime. I don't need to buy more gear. It's cruise ships. It's a snow hotel. It's summer. And the other thing that we really try to do is we try to make sure that we're not working all the time super hard. If we work hard, but we need to defeat seasonality. So it's not really fair for our dogs and our employees to work really hard for 4 months and then nothing. So it's way better to work a bit, avoid that seasonality. So not super hard 4 months and that. So this was a way for us to also work in summertime, get some money, keep our dogs happy, keep moving, and actually be able to invest time and money back into the dogs. So that was roughly how we started. Got up to Rovaniemi.
And here where we are right now, this is not your first place where you've settled. You've settled elsewhere.
Yep. This particular place is, what you see here, everything that you saw in the videos and the things, we've only managed to do since 2016. Now, we came over to work for one of the larger tourism operations in Lapland, and we worked as a subcontractor for them for a while. And 2013, we had a disagreement with them. We were not particularly happy with them. They were not particularly happy with us. And they kind of terminated our contract with a rather short notice. So all of a sudden we were working as a subcontractor before, all of a sudden 2013 we were forced to become independent. And we had to hustle. 2013 was a really crazy, December 2012 I think it was, maybe, was really crazy. But anyway, 2013 we found a small temporary place where we could be. We moved our dogs there. And we decided that now we're going to be independent. When I was working as a subcontractor, I wasn't really happy with it. Again, I don't like working for a boss. So I had my own business, but I was working as a subcontractor. I kind of needed to do what the boss wanted. But at that moment, we became independent and we were like, okay, we're free from all the shackles that we have. Now we're again captain of our own ship. We can do how we want to do it. And we decided that if we're going to be independent, then we're going to be the best independent we can be. And at the same time, if the kind of trends in tourism as it was going was that group travel, what we were doing as a subcontractor, seemed to be, it wasn't dying, but it was becoming less prominent. And especially in a place like Rovaniemi, there was more and more people flying in with the independent travelers, the individuals who are booking their flights with Norwegian or with EasyJet, or they're booking their hotels on booking.com, they're checking TripAdvisor. These kind of tourists were becoming more prominent. So we decided that we're going to focus on these. We're going to focus on our TripAdvisor ratings. We're going to get our own web shop. We're going to get ways that we can actually control our own brand and our own marketing. And this went a bit counter to what at that point in time was happening at Rovaniemi, because a lot of the other kennels, they were still working on this old system of subcontracting for a safari company and waiting for the safari company to do the sales and the marketing and this kind of thing. And we were kind of the first ones who said, all right, I was tired of this system where the big companies were giving us very low prices and we had to work for less than what we were worth, and our dogs were not getting valued the way that they should be. So we decided to become independent, and 3 years we did that. 2013, 14, 15 we did that. 16 we bought this land and there was nothing here, it was all forest. And we built the road in, we put up a yurt, we put up our dog yard, and we started to do the tours like we really wanted to do. And because we had, there's a little bit of a side detour before that, but let's talk about that later maybe. But because we now had our own place, we could build the kennel as we wished.
Wow, that's an amazing story, and so much, motivation that you had, and that resulted in this wonderful place that you've built. First the dogs, then these wonderful buildings, the kotas that we are. It's like amazing infrastructure, and now you're even having a sauna there on the lake.
Yep.
Which is an amazing place for anyone to stay.
Well, the sauna was kind of like, that was one of our Corona adaptations. We had built, every place that you build, there has to have a sauna. Simple as that. We have a really nice stretch of land. There's about 900 meters of shoreline. There was one really good spot for a sauna. So we had decided, if we're going to come here, we need a sauna. Built up the sauna. And it was actually being underutilized. We had kind of this idea that we could rent it out to our guests if they wanted to have something extra, go have a very nice husky ride, have a sauna after that. And it wasn't really working. Every now and again something happened, but it wasn't that. So we had this idea, let's turn it into, let's push it a bit more. And then Corona happened. And when Corona happened, we were like, okay, well, there's no one going to be doing any, or very little people are going to be doing husky rides anymore. But we thought, well, what if we repurpose it as a cabin to stay in so that people can spend the night? Then the sauna becomes the secondary thing. So we used a bit of money to fix it up. We put a nice hot tub in there. We put in some really good beds. And we started to see if, it was literally fishing. Just put it on booking.com and see what happens. And I think it was 2 or 3 days after we put it up, the first booking came in.
Yeah.
And since then, it's been working really nicely. At the moment, it's empty. So if anyone wants to book until the 13th, we still have space. But before all the Corona cancellations were coming in again, they actually look pretty good.
Nice.
We've also had lots of Finnish people stay there, so they appreciate it as well.
Nice. So how did you find out all of the information that is related to taking care of the dogs, which dogs to choose? I think, if I remember correctly, it was a little bit of a bumpy ride for you to learning your trade. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, like I said, I'd actually done a course in this already. So I'm one of the very few, there have been 1 or 2 courses like this organized in Finland. I'm one of the very few people who have a so-called qualification in it. But most of this you just have to learn by doing it. You go out, you try something, it doesn't work, and then you go and ask someone who knows more than you how to do it, or you read books and you see what other people have, handled the situation. Back in 2003, there was not much internet happening, but there were, chat forums where you could talk about this. So there was stuff that you could get off there. But most of it is just going out there, trying it, messing up, and trying to figure out where you went wrong and how you can do it. That being said, a lot of what I know about my sled dogs and how my sled dogs work, I've actually learned from some dogs. I've not learned them from people, I've not learned them from books, but I've learned it from dogs. There's a few notable dogs that talk about. Hugesta is one. He was a retired Iditarod sled dog, lead dog. He'd done 5 Iditarods. We got him from a gentleman called Sven Engholm. And Hugesta is a dog that taught me the value of a really good lead dog. What a real lead dog can do, what the actual capabilities are of a dog. If you don't know this, if you never run a good dog, you will never know what a dog is capable of. So only once you have been handed the opportunity to run a really fantastic dog, way better than you could ever imagine, will you actually be able to imagine what is possible. So there's he was one. Then we had Kurt was another one. Kurt was a retired racing sled dog. Came from Rune and Maikoni Johansson, also in Norway. And he was a dog that, he was a bit strange. He was strange. He didn't like people. He liked to run. And he taught me a lot about, okay, you just have to work with what actually motivates a dog, because he wasn't motivated by his love for you. We couldn't care less about you. He just wanted to run, get the job done. And he enjoyed being out there with other dogs doing this kind of thing. So that was a dog that gave me the kind of hint that sometimes you're not the most important part in that dog's motivation. There's other factors in there. But he taught us a lot. I had a dog called Kurra, who came from another friend of mine. And he was also an excellent dog. So there have always been certain dogs that either I bred myself, but most of the time they came from other people, and those dogs were trained in another kennel, bred by someone else, and they came here to my kennel and they taught me. They gave information to me, passed it on. So besides the books and all the people I've talked to and all the things I've done, it is also very important to remember that there have been dogs that have taught me. And it's something that these days, if beginning people, beginning mushers come up to me and say, well, you know, what can I do to start? I said, get an old dog, learn from the dog. And unfortunately, many people think that that it's a common mistake. They come in, they say they buy a puppy, they're going to teach the puppy what to do. But it's the ignorant leading the ignorant. They don't know what to do, the puppy doesn't know what to do. They're not going to get very far. If you get yourself a good dog first and start with that, that dog is going to teach you, and you will get a lot further that way than if you just try and do it from a puppy onwards without having any previous experience.
Wow, what an amazing point of view. I don't think any one of us can even begin approaching this subject from a dog's perspective, and that is amazing to pick your brain. But tell me, Valentijn, what is a husky in the first place? Is there any a definition? Can you open
the dictionary definition of a husky is furry northern dog that pulls a sled.
That's it.
That's it. Furry northern dog that pulls a sled. If you open up the dictionary, I think it was the Oxford Dictionary, that's basically what it says. It doesn't tell you what color it is. It doesn't tell you what color eyes it has. Well, it says it's furry. The word itself, husky, comes from, it was a name that the Indians who were living in, say now, what these days would be southern Canada, northern United States, they used the word husky to define the dogs that belonged to the Inuit and the Indians who lived north of them. Mm-hmm. So they called those dogs in the north huskies, and those people used those dogs to pull sleds. These days, very often people consider, they confuse husky with these blue-eyed, pointy-eared, pure-breed Siberian huskies that you see very often in Disney movies, or you'll see them at dog shows. You'll see them as pets very often. But the reality is, if a working sled dog is a purpose-bred dog to get the job done. Funnily enough, it hasn't happened recently, but I've still had a lot of people argue with me that I don't have huskies because they don't have blue eyes. I even have, there is another kennel out there which offers a real husky guarantee, which implies that there are fake huskies otherwise, because if they have real, then someone else is fake, which is kind of silly because in the world of sled dogs, just besides huskies, if you think about all the different types of huskies there are, there's actually only 4 internationally recognized pure-breed dogs, sled dogs. You've got the Siberian Husky, the Alaskan Malamute, the Greenland Dog, and the Samoyed. These are Kennel Club approved dogs, or International Kennel Club approved dogs. Now, people, the Kennel Club is not the United Nations. It's just a kennel club. It's a bunch of posh ladies and gentlemen sitting in smoke-filled rooms, deciding how big, how small, how fat, how thin. It's a committee. It's a hobby. You might as well be breeding pure-breed cats or pure-breed parakeets or pure-breed donkeys. The only difference is that with pure-breed dogs, it's a very popular worldwide hobby. But beside these pure-breed dogs, those and the pure-breed hobby is only 200 years old. So it's a bit silly to consider that breeds are only 200 years old. Of course, breeds are older than that. If you look at the north, go to Siberia, there is Mackenzie River Huskies, there's Chinook Huskies, there's Alaskan Huskies. If you go to Canada, there's Canadian Inuit dogs. I believe they have Baffin Bay dogs and Hudson Bay dogs. If you go to Greenland, they have East Greenland dogs and West Greenland dogs. You go to Europe, you're in Scandinavia, they got something called the Scandinavian Hound. I believe there is something in Germany which is already called the German Trail Hound. It's a very recent kind of breed. You go to Siberia or Russia, you got Chukotka dogs and Kamchatka dogs and Timur dogs. These are all different sled dog breeds. None of them are, some more or less, they might be accepted or approved by a kennel club, but some are not at all. But they're all legitimate breeds, and every single one of them looks different, behaves different, does different. My personal favorite is the Alaskan Husky. That's what I like to work with. They're friendly dogs. They are very athletic dogs. They're very driven dogs. And they're just the ones that I like. I've had Siberian Huskies before. I've even imported 1 or 2 Siberian Huskies, which have become very important breeding males in Finland earlier. But really I like the Alaskan Husky the most.
And that's your 100% of your Huskies are Alaskan.
I think I have a few half Siberian, half Alaskans, but let's say 98% of my dogs are Alaskan Husky.
Is there a difference between Siberian and Alaskan Huskies?
Yes, it's kind of difficult to explain. You have to put the two together.
Well, please, we have time.
Siberian Huskies, again, first of all, they have to comply with the breed standards as the Kennel Club says. I believe there is something in there about being independent-minded. There is something in there about the shape of their dogs, the colors they can be. For the Alaskan Husky, this is all irrelevant. Every breeder breeds the dogs as they see fit. Now, 100 years ago, the Alaskan Husky was a big, massive, furry dog. It was used to pull sleds to supply gold mines in the Alaskan wilderness during the gold rush. Before that time, it was used by the Indians and the Inuit there to pull sleds and do, just as a general working animal. And under those conditions that they lived there, it was beneficial to be big and furry. It was a very harsh life, very little food, hard work, almost no protection from the elements. There was no dog houses or anything like this. So these dogs needed to be big, strong, and tough and hardy, and preferably eat very little. So that was the original Alaskan Husky back then. Now, modern technology came along. They lost their jobs. Snowmobiles came, the gold dried up, they weren't necessary anymore. And this traditional type of Husky started to die out. But at the same time, sled dog racing became more important. So villages started to race against each other. Let's see whose dogs are faster. Long distance racing became more important in Alaska specifically. And these Alaskan Huskies started to evolve. Being big and hairy and strong wasn't any more beneficial if your job was now to be faster than the other team. So they became smaller, lighter, more athletic dogs. They had less hair because to run fast you don't need to have that much hair. It's actually detrimental to have too much hair when you're running fast. So these dogs evolved, they changed, and they became, like I said, smaller, more athletic. And they're descended from village dogs. Village dogs have no clearly defined pedigree limits. So if someone decided to breed in a setter or a pointer or a wolf or something to try and achieve this faster dog, they did. Very often people use that as an excuse to describe Alaskan Huskies as a mix. They're a mix of something. But the reality is, at what point in time, if you breed it enough, does a mix stop being a mix and start being its own breed? And this breed is very much defined by its physical abilities, its desire to run, its ability to run. And those are not... If you breed a well-running dog with another well-running dog, those offspring should be well-running dogs.
So what are you saying, if I understand it correctly, that in the old days the Alaskan Huskies were more similar to Siberian Huskies in terms of being bigger and furry, and then they went like a little bit apart? But,
not really.
But Siberian Huskies, they stayed the same. There has never happened the same kind of development as in Alaska.
Yes and no. So that's actually an interesting point. The Siberian Huskies lived in Siberia first. They were not in Alaska. But they are important to the story in some way. So what happened was these big furry dogs were in Alaska, and then racing became more important. And some really entrepreneurial, it was actually a Russian fur trader who was trading between Chukotka and Alaska at the time. He saw that these races were being run by big hairy dogs, and he knew that in Chukotka they had smaller hairy dogs. And he thought, well, if I get these smaller, faster dogs over to Alaska, I can enter them in the race and I can win. So he brought over these smaller furry dogs, which were the Siberian Huskies. These dogs that they imported to Alaska with the purpose of racing became the foundation of the Siberian Husky purebred dog. But it was the first step in this evolution. When those Siberian Huskies came in, all these people with big, heavy dogs went, hang on a second, I'm outclassed by the smaller dogs.
So they won.
In the beginning, they didn't actually win, but they were competitive. And later they did win a few races as well. And quite many famous dog drivers, famous mushers, drove Siberian Huskies and did, remarkable feats of endurance and racing and heroics in Alaska with them. But the first step towards smaller, faster dogs was made when they imported these dogs from Alaska. That's kind of
Siberia.
From Siberia to Alaska. What later happened is the Siberian Husky became a codified, stratified breed. The Kennel Club took over and they said, you have to look like this. Therefore, their evolution kind of stalled. And what evolution did continue after that was very often driven by dog shows. Just hobbyists who want to have a fluffy dog to look good. The Alaskan Husky kept evolving. So they're these days, mine are actually bigger than average Siberians these days, but they're very athletic, big dogs. I'm not a small musher, I like big dogs. People walk into, other owners of Alaskan Huskies walk into my dog yard and they go, wow, these dogs are big. I probably won't win sled dog races with them, but I just particularly like this kind of big dog. So again, in the history of the racing and the Siberian Huskies were the first step towards a smaller, faster dog. It showed the other ones the way.
Nice. Well, you are so wonderful in knowing all of these details. But what are your Huskies like? What do they like? What is going in their minds like as you see them daily? Tell us about these wonderful dogs.
Well, what makes I'm very bad at other breeds. I wouldn't have a clue how to handle Malinois or police dogs or pointers or hounds or anything like that. I have to admit, I'm not a very good dog trainer when it comes to being able to work with other types of dogs. I'm pretty okay doing my own type. The one thing is that you have to realize that every working dog's brain, every breed is different. There is variations within the breed, but as their body is evolved to do a certain job, their mind is to evolve to do a certain job, or we have changed their mind to work a certain way. Border collies like harassing sheep. You don't train a border collie to do that behavior. It does it, and then you shape that behavior to what is appropriate to do when. But he just randomly starts doing things and then you say, now you do that, now you do that, now you do that. A pointer points. You don't teach a pointer how to point. Finnish Spitzes bark at birds. You don't teach it to bark. You don't, go and show it how to bark or this kind of thing. You encourage its natural behavior to bark, and then you sort of say when it's okay to bark, when it's not okay to bark. So these are natural, it's inherent to that specific dog's breed how they behave. Retrievers retrieve, the name says it all, a pointer points. Huskies run as a pack. So what that means is their minds are bred or evolved in such a way that they are genetically primed to enjoy running. When they run, they're just as happy as when a border collie is harassing the sheep or a pointer is pointing. They're happy at a neurochemical level in their brain. All these little happy neurochemicals are going off in their brain, and they enjoy it at that very basic fundamental level. And my job is to encourage that, to make sure that they can get to do that, they can get to do it safely, and if I can share that enthusiasm that they have with my guests, that's great. But my first job is to make sure that they can run and that they can enjoy it and they can do it safely. So I'm a little bit of an enabler. I'm the one who helps them run as a team. Of course, I have my requirements. I want them to run as a team. We don't run as a wild pack of dogs through the forest. There is structure to it. But that applies to a border collie as well. A border collie is just not allowed to run around the fields chasing sheep all day. It has to do it under certain command, under certain rules. So for my dogs, I want them to be able to run as a team, like you see on the videos how the dogs run. That's something we teach them. But the actual desire to run, that's already in there. And all we need to do is encourage it. Or in some cases, at least not diminish it. If you can already just work with not diminishing it, that's already a good thing. But if you're good enough to actually encourage that pleasure that they have in running and enable it, that's when you're going forward. Interesting.
So I would have asked you the question, how do you train Huskies? But I know you don't like the word train. You prefer the word condition. So I would like to ask you, how do you condition your dogs, and why don't you like this train word?
There's two. Conditioning is a physical. Actually, conditioning is also a training word. But there is the shaping of the dog's mind and its behavior, and there is the physical conditioning that you do. So to train the dog, that is where we teach it to sit, to stay, to run as a pack, to behave, all these things which are mental. Then there is the physical part, which is just taking a unfit dog and turning it into an amazing athlete. So they're two separate things, but they go hand in hand. One of the things about if you're a human athlete, you yourself can decide, today I'm going to run at maximum intensity for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to stop and I'm going to hold back, I'm going to walk slowly, and then I'm going to go another 2 minutes. And you can also go out and you can think ahead, I'm going to run 50 kilometers or 40 kilometers or 20, and I'm going to go slow and I'm going to finish fast. And you can execute that plan in your brain as you're going along. A dog doesn't do that. He just wants to run. He doesn't, you can't read the plan to him before we go and say, we're first going to run slow, and then we're going to run fast, and then we're going to run slow. So you need to teach the dog to do that. You need to teach him when it's appropriate to run fast, when it's appropriate to run slow, how to run, all these things. And that's training. Conditioning is when I'm going, today we're going to run 30, tomorrow we're going to run 40, then I'm going to go back to doing a 20, and then I'll run a 10 fast, and all these little tricks that you do to get your dogs fitter and fitter and fitter. But the actual training part, that's where we talk about sitting and staying, behaving, but also running up hills fast. That's a mental thing. The dogs are strong enough to pull cars down the road, but if you let them train them wrong, they will believe that they have to walk up a hill. So, I weigh way more than I should weigh. But let's put it this way, if I go up the hill, they are more than capable of running up that hill full speed, pulling me up that hill, because they can pull a car on the flat. But if they've been trained the wrong way, so they're conditioned to be able to do it, but if they've been trained the wrong way, they will just walk up that hill because they believe, or they have always done a slow up the hill, then they've been trained to go slow, even though physically they can. So training is like, how do you get them to run up a hill fast, for instance? Or how do you get them to run for 4 or 5 hours without stopping? Of course they would run 6 or 7 hours, but I want them to run 4 hours and then rest. So that's something we need to train them to accept. So again, physical part, that's just the conditioning. Mental part is training. But if you want to complicate it, operant conditioning is a part of mental training, but that's something else.
Understood. Thanks for making it clear. And by the way, how long Huskies can run, or how long would they like to run in terms of kilometers, for example, or hours?
It's they can run amazing distances. How long they could run if you let them run alone, I don't know, because we've never tried that. We always go sledding with someone there. On sled dog races, these dogs have been known to run up to 200, 220 kilometers per day. And they might run, depending on how they've been trained and prepared, again, that training versus conditioning. If they've been conditioned to be able to run 6 hours and then rest for 5 hours, their mental training also has to prepare them that they stop, they know that we're now going to sleep. We're not going to stand and wake and shout and scream, but we're going to sleep for 5 and then we go again. If you do this well, you should be able to run about 12 to 14 hours in a day and rest for 10. If you travel at 15, 16 kilometers per hour, you can do the math. So let's say that 12 hours at 16, 160, almost 200 kilometers a day. But it would be 6 hours of running, 6 hours of resting, 6 hours of running, 6 hours of resting.
What about like more normal kind of life, not the racing?
In our kennel year, on a really busy day, our dogs would run 40.
40?
Yeah, roughly. This is just based on the rough calculation of, they run average. Our safari speed is 10 kilometers per hour. This is with all the stopping and pictures and going and this kind of thing. And they would run for half an hour, so it'd be 5 kilometers. Then they would run for an hour and a half, 15, so that's 20, and they would do that twice, so that'd be 40 kilometers a day. And they would do that, let's say 3 to 5 days a week. Might be a 6-day week every now and again, but then there would also be a 3-day week coming up after that.
Understood. What is your typical day like at the kennel?
Now, during Corona, or?
Well, we can compare. What was it before and was it now? Like a year ago and now.
A year ago, we would have been going out 4 times a day, 4 times with 10 teams. So we would have 40 sleds sold today. This year, we have nothing. We have nothing tomorrow, and I think we have our first booking on Friday, if I understood correctly. And that is for 2 sleds. So the decrease in amount of people coming to visit has been huge. That being said, we're still going to drive our dogs. So our daily routine here is in the morning we clean the kennel. After that, we'll hook up some dogs to go run. We'll come back, we'll snack our dogs, put them back to their fence, and feed in the evening again. So the basic daily routine of the kennel keeps on going around. The only difference is without all the guests here, sometimes the dogs will probably run less intensively than they would have done last year.
How are you surviving these days?
Barely. It is a challenge. So the kind of the hope had been through the season, through summertime, that maybe by wintertime the politicians would have figured out a way to at least keep some kind of safe tourism working. Unfortunately, the Finnish government has been, I would call it, incompetent when it comes to handling at least the tourism part. They've been very good at other things, but their international travel approach has been sourly disappointing, let's put it that way. And it means that at the moment we have practically no guests coming to Lapland. There are small groups of travelers coming in. There is, we've already identified certain types of customers to come, but nothing as before. So these days we are looking for alternative ways of getting some money in to feed the dogs. That being said, there has been a lot of help. A lot of people have been very generous in donating money or time or food. And I'm happy to say that at the moment we have no problems with dog food. My freezers are full. We've actually had large amounts of food donated, enough to feed the kennel for quite a long time. What we are, we do still need is money to actually, pay the freezers. So one of the things that we have done is we've started to see, alternative sources. So one of these is something that we've decided to do, which is our calendar. We've not done a calendar before, but this year we decided. Good friend of mine, Joel Forsman's been coming over for almost 2 years. He's a friend of mine who has been sledding in Alaska. Very good dog photographer. And he put together this really beautiful calendar. And it's got, for every month of the year, it's got a picture in there about what we're doing with the dogs during that time. And this is one way, for instance, that we're trying to see if we can get some money to keep the kennel running, to take care of our dogs, to pay our employees going through the season. The reality is we're going to have to be very creative to survive. I do hope that it'll get better by next autumn time, but between now and then it's quite a lot of time still. So
people can support you by purchasing this calendar from your online shop?
Yeah, the calendar is available through a couple of outlets. You can either contact Joel Forsman himself, or otherwise through our own web shop on Bearhill Husky. Yes. And I believe that the Aurora web shop as well has, you've decided to stock it also.
Yes, and now we have the calendar on sale. So all of you guys, we can go to bearhillhusky.com, and this is the place where you can order this beautiful calendar for the price of...
it's including shipping within Finland, it's 36 euros. And I believe it was 45 euros within Europe.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are not able to ship to the US, but if you are from the US, Aurora web shop is the place to buy it.
Yes, this is the reason why we have decided to take this amazing calendars on our shop, or shop.fi. So you can basically order them from anywhere. The price is 30 euros. This is Wow, there's
hear
lots
the
of
dogs.
the dogs are making sound outside. So the price is 30 euros without shipping, and you add your shipping accordingly to your country, and we do ship to the US. So you'll get 30 euros plus the shipping to your country, so that price depends. And we will take all of the money that we have from the proceeds and give it to Valentijn to support the dogs. So is there another way to support you?
Yep, if you go to the web shop, you can buy our buff as well, or you could choose a godparent program, in which case you would basically support a dog in our kennel, and in exchange for that you'll get a sled dog ride for the family, and we'll send you a nice picture of the dog as well coming in the post. For that, Joel, our photographer, is going to come over and he will take a professional picture of each of the dogs that has been sponsored as a godparent thing. And of course, you're more than welcome to come join a Husky tour as well.
Amazing.
If you've done that.
So you're like buying a delayed Husky tour,
Exactly.
so to speak.
Yeah.
So pay now, support, and use the service later.
Exactly.
Amazing. So please, guys, go to bearhillhusky.com to order the amazing calendar to Europe or to Finland, and also to book your tour in advance and help the kennel that way. Or you can go to aurorashop.fi and buy that calendar from our shop, and maybe also you can pick up something else in the process as well. Tell us about what kind of tours you would normally be doing at this season. How does it all go? What is the path or experience that people that are staying somewhere in the city center of Rovaniemi are going through?
If you would visit us for a tour, there would be a few options to do. These days we don't do long tours very much anymore, so especially in December we would be limited by the trails that we have, and we would offer our most popular one in December must be something we call the Happy Trail. The Happy Trail tour is it includes 45 minutes of sledding with the dogs. It has an hour and 45 about of other things, of which 45 minutes is actually just hanging out with the dogs, frying a sausage indoors here in the Kotta. The other tour we sell is the Call of the Wild, which is almost the same setup, but it has an hour and a half on the sled. And the Happy Trail is very much suited for families. The Call of the Wild is an experience which I think would be more for adventurous couples would do that. Later in the season we have the Tiger Tour, which is a whole day trip in which we go out and we drive the whole day, we have lunch in the forest, we come back again, after which you might still want to book a sauna if you wish. And of course there is always the opportunity to stay at the cabin here and then have one of the tours or a couple of tours even with us.
Amazing. And many people who come here for just a quick visit, they do not realize that the kennel has to be running all throughout the year.
Yeah.
So there's always something happening. You cannot just leave the dogs. So could you go through this whole year, how it all happens? You know, not only in the highest tourist season normally, but also what kind of work do you do in spring? What do you do in summer? What happens in autumn? Yeah. And please take your time with telling, because it's so interesting.
It is true that there is. It's definitely true that there's the right time for everything to do with our dogs. So wintertime is very much dedicated to sledding. So we're out with the sleds, either with guests or doing it ourselves for training our dogs for racing. So we're very much working with adult dogs and sledding. So that's our winter focus. Come springtime, now in Finland springtime would be end of March and April, and in some cases in the far north even May. We would actually go and do more of our own stuff with the dogs. You know, we've been working with them all winter, but April is a very good time to go out to the mountains and just go camping and sledding and have fun with the dogs. So that's something we would do in April. May is usually a muddy month. May we don't do much. I'm kind of fed up with dogs by that time. They're fed up with me. And May is a good time to just take it easy and clean up all the rubbish after the winter. So May is our spring clean month. June, July is when we need to keep our dogs active all year round. So in June and July, and for a good time in August, we just spend time with the dogs. We either have them in our running fence. We have a big running fence available for the dogs to be in. But we also have a dog walker these days. We can have the dogs in there. And we do some small routine training as well. So through summertime, those are the 3 activities that we try to focus on.
When are the young ones
Yeah,
born?
that's what I was going to say as well. When things work out as they should, we try and have our puppies born between the 1st of May and the end of June. That's the perfect time. If they're born then we can actually spend a lot of time with them. So through summertime, we take them for walks. We take them out, daily walks in the forest. We teach them how to come back to us, to sit, to stay, to basically be good canine citizens, and also how to learn. So it's very important that young dogs figure out that by interacting with humans and doing things, you can get snacks, you can get attention, you can achieve something, and you build up a working interaction, a working relationship with these pups. It doesn't have to be specifically with one person. It's actually very good if they figure out that this interaction works with every human, not just that one person. Anyway, as we start with these pups in that time, they get older and older and older. And by the time autumn comes around, we will start to hook up our dogs to quad bikes and we'll start training them to get ready for the season. And it'll start slowly. It might be 5-6 kilometers, but we'll pretty soon be building it up to 10, 15, 20. This training with the quads, building up, that takes until the snow comes, and then we switch to snow and then we're sledding again. With the young dogs, they will, their life is basically all happy training till they turn about 7 months, 8 months old. Then we'll slowly start to introduce them to some pulling work. They have to wear a harness, they have to pull something. It's usually only a couple of 100 meters that they have to go. But we do that for a couple of months. And hopefully, when everything works well, is by the time we're sledding, they're already prepped enough to be able to sled 4 or 5 kilometers. And then they can also go sledding on short trips. So in our kennel, very often we have, this is a volunteer's job. So if this year we're actually pretty well set up, at least until the end of the winter. But every year we will accept volunteers whose job is nothing but training puppies. It's a really hard job, it's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. Every day you have to take them for a walk. But it's something that we spend a lot of time on, and we usually get someone to help out with that.
Amazing. So any final words on the Huskies and what you do? Well,
we enjoy what we do, and we're really proud of what we've achieved here. I'm really proud of my dogs. I'm really proud of my team. And it's kind of like this Corona year is a bit sad. I would have loved to share this experience with so many people this year, and it just is not working out this year as we had hoped. But then again, I suppose no one's life this year is as they had hoped. But final words are, if you would like to support our kennel, please surf over to our web shop, buy the calendar there, go to the Aurora web shop, buy it there if you're a bit further away. That would be really good. Or best of all, if you can, travel to the north, come have a Husky ride, see how amazing these animals actually are.
Amazing. So all of the guys who are like sitting now in Helsinki, Espoo, Vantaa, Porvoo, Pori, all of the other wonderful cities, come join us here in Lapland. We have snow. It's dark, but it's beautiful. We have amazing Husky tours here happening. Everything is so cool. We're doing our live videos as well all December to show you Lapland if you cannot travel. But if you can, just come join us here in the Winter Wonderland. And please go follow this wonderful kennel. It is at Bearhill Husky on Instagram, and also just go search it on Facebook, Bearhill Husky, and go to their wonderful site, bearhillhusky.com, where you will find all the information about their tours, about the wonderful sauna that you can rent, and also
spend the night in.
Spend the night in, and also support the kennel by purchasing their wonderful calendar or being a supporter of the kennel and having your tour later. Thanks a lot for joining me.
My pleasure.
Here, I'm so excited that we're doing this live.
I've been talking about it for a long time.
Yes, and now it's finally here. Finally here. Now it's totally dark outside. We're going to have some sausages here by the fire, and to finish our podcast, we're going to show you a wonderful video that we shot a couple of summers ago of what is the life of the kennel here on a different season then it's snowy season, and it's a short video. Hope you enjoy that. Please subscribe to our podcast. It can be found on all of the major podcasting applications, including the Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc. And you can also find the fresh episodes on our site, allaboutLapland.fi. We have had amazing guests on our podcast and going to have amazing guests all the time during this winter. Thanks a lot for watching. Stay positive, keep on smiling, and stay cool. All right.
So the snow is gone, summer is coming, and we need to keep our dogs active during the summer. So what we particularly like to do here is, when the temperature allows, is we hook up the dog team and we go for short runs at the moment. It's just a few hundred meters around, half a mile about, and we're practicing routine. We want the dogs into the team, have a run, stop, wait, out of the team, and over again. This keeps them active through summertime. We'll also be free running them, and we'll have a dog walker. I'll talk about that later. However, if you want to come visit the kennel in summer, 4th of June we open again, and you can book a kennel visit with us, and we will show you around the kennel and explain what we do here. And it's a nice time to meet our puppies as well.